Mike Mills, Verity Mortgage here today. We're doing something a little bit different. I have a friend of mine, Cody Durham, here with 10 Gage Ridge Roofing. And we're going to talk a little bit today about roofing and things to look for when you buy a home and just stuff that you kind of need to be aware of generally when you're buying a house and considering different aspects of the house and whether or not you want to put your offer in, and once you do get your offer in, what you really need to watch out for. So, but first, before we get into all the boring household stuff, I want to find out a little bit about Cody, because in my experience, Cody, most people like to work with people they know.
Yeah.
You generally feel a little more comfortable, a little bit more at ease with that kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, all that stuff.
So grew up here in Arlington, actually. Arlington, Mansfield. Mansfield's been home now, I guess, for 15 years, but graduated from Arlington High, so born and bred Arlington guy. And my wife and I got married, 15 years ago this year. We got a couple of kids, so we're very ingrained into the Mansfield area and play a lot of sports. And
that's how we met each other?
Yeah, absolutely. Baseball years ago, volleyball with the kids, and try to find some time to do a little roofing in between.
A little bit, and mix it in. Now, you're also, I hate to tell everybody about this because, those daggum Aggies are not my favorite in the world, but...
it's a good time to be an Aggie right now.
It is.
This time of year, we were a little worried at the first of the year, but I graduated from A&M back in 2000. With a degree in industrial distribution, and somehow from that spawned into a career into roofing.
Okay.
So here we are. Been roofing going on, I guess 7 years, and have my business now for, I guess it'll be about 2 years, and made a good career out of it, and fortunate to work out with guys like Mike and realtors and insurance agents, and it keeps us pretty busy.
Now you have 2 kids, right?
I have 2 kids, My daughter, Ridgely, she's 13, 8th grade.
And we're crosstown rivals in volleyball.
We are, some very heated volleyball exchanges.
That's right.
And then Gage, my son, he's 11, playing baseball. So, we're very, very busy. Had a long weekend of baseball this weekend. And
somehow you got to fit in work in between every once in a while, right?
Occasionally, occasionally. So we don't get a lot of sleep around our house. My wife and I kind of high-five in between baseball, volleyball, just like you.
Now, a lot of people don't know too, but you were quite the baseball star back. I know you don't like to talk about it. You never want to bring it up.
Supposedly. Allegedly, I played a little baseball once upon a time.
Right.
After high school, that was that. Now I'm living vicariously through my kids.
Yeah, now you're hitting balls off roofs.
Yeah, that's right. Get that hail damage. Whatever
that's right.
Baseballs, golf balls. So
you had obviously been working in the roofing business before and have had a lot of experience over the years, and then all of a sudden you decided to start your own thing.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people, that's a kind of a scary thing for people generally speaking. When you step out on your own, no guaranteed income, nothing coming your way. So what was kind of the thing that really pushed you pushed you to want to go do that on your own?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate when I got into roofing. I worked with a couple of really great companies to kind of cut my teeth. One here locally and another one that's also in Arlington. 2 very different kind of approaches to roofing.
Okay.
One is more new construction, kind of high volume residential. And then the other company I work for, they do very luxurious high-end homes, things like that. So I learned both aspects of the business.
Gotcha.
But all along during that time, I'm growing my own pipeline, my own book of business, and my own referrals. For whatever reason, I seem to have a pretty large network of friends and people who can refer me business that touch this business.
The baseball career, just
just baseball. It was all baseball related. The Aggie thing had nothing to do with it.
No. Nobody wants to do business with Aggies.
No. I'm very quiet about it. I get asked that all the time. Like, why don't you put Aggie owned on your business cards? Where I was like,
because you eliminate.
There's some UT fans who are never ever going to call me. But no, I just having friends like yourself and some other guys that touch a lot of real estate or roofs just in general. I was just building all that business on my own and growing my network, and not that those companies weren't helping me with that. I was just doing more and more and more on my own. So when I finally came to the decision, hey, let's do this on my own, it was maybe less scary than I think it might have been for some other folks, just because I was already generating all my own business at the time. Sure, it's scary because at that point, all of the liability and everything comes down to me.
You're the man now. It's all on you.
But I think at the end of the day, about 6 months into it, somebody asked me how I was doing. I was like, I'm pretty great. I'm stress free for the most part. I mean, there's stress. There's no perfect job, and this is certainly no different.
Right.
But because it was on me and I had to make those decisions and I could set things up in a way that I guess, kind of benefited me in the way we approach problems and handle the processes. It's been really good, and I think along the way it's been good for the homeowners we deal with and realtors, insurance agents, mortgage folks. It's working well.
So what would you say was one of the, if you could look back on getting started and moving forward, what was like one of the biggest things that happened to you or that was affected by owning your own business that you really weren't quite ready for, but it still kind of hit you in the face a little bit, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to deal with this one?
It was actually pretty recently, as a matter of fact. It all ended up, well in the end,
Sure.
but I made a mistake at the end of the day. Great homeowner, we roofed her house, we start looking at it and we're like, this is not the right shingle.
Right.
This is not what we wanted. She was clearly not happy, but she would have left, been fine in the end of the day, but I wouldn't have been fine with it. Yeah. So I said,
well, she would have been fine, but she wouldn't have been fine long term, and then that's where the referral businesses and stuff start going away.
So I went to work trying to figure out exactly where everything went wrong, and it was on me. And so we went out a week later, we tore the whole roof off and put a whole new roof up.
Okay.
And it cost some money.
Yeah.
Like anything.
It always does. Anytime you make mistakes.
The most. But, but and I think that's what I feel about my company. And there's a lot of good roofing companies out there, but it's when problems arise, how do you handle those problems?
Yep.
Do you answer your phone? Do you do the right thing? And that's kind of, I feel like is going to pay dividends for us long term. It already has thus far. We take care of our customers. We're honest. And even if it costs us $1 or $2, we're going to make sure it's right.
Well, and I think, a lot of people maybe don't realize sometimes that, when you do make a mistake, to own up to that,
Absolutely.
that's a big step. There's many, we've all dealt with lots of different companies from lots of different walks of life, not just roofing, but anything.
Sure.
Where, it's obvious the business made the mistake or something happened and nobody really wants to take ownership of that. And then, a lot of us, we will walk away from that business and, it'll, we'll get our service. It may not be the best, but we certainly aren't going back to that place.
Right.
And we're not telling our friends about it. And I think when you find a company and you find people that really can say, hey, look, we screwed up. It's our fault, and draw that attention to yourself and own up to it.
Yeah.
Even though you made the mistake, that's how you build customers for a very long period of time. You get customers for life that way because they know no matter what, you're going to take care of them.
Yeah, and that's the hope. And when we did it, it stung. I lost sleep over it. But the main thing I lost sleep over was seeing the unhappiness on her face, knowing that that's not what she wanted. That wasn't the dream. It's a beautiful home here in Mansfield, but in the end, it all worked out. It's fine. And, there's other houses. There's more money to be made. So it's making people happy. And, I think we all have a little bit of a servant's heart in us if you own your own business or any sort of service industry.
That's a long-term decision as opposed to a short-term decision.
That's
the short-term decision is keep the money, hope nobody gets upset. The long-term decision is fix it, take a little bit of a hit, but,
got to be able to sleep at night. And I'm sleeping pretty well.
Okay.
Short spells, but I am sleeping. So.
All right, so then now tell us a little bit about, so obviously, I have a question. Yeah. 10 gauge ridge roofing.
Yeah.
All right, so where'd that come from?
That's the number one question I get from every homeowner. So 10 gauge ridge, I mentioned it earlier. I have a son named Gage and a daughter named Ridgely. And the number 10, that's probably the biggest question. So my wife played college volleyball at SMU. And even in high school, she wore number 10. College, she wore number 10. And then my daughter Ridgely was born on the 10th of the month. My son was born on the 10th month of the year. So 10 is kind of our family number.
Like it?
The kids wear number 10. So 10 gauge ridge was
so we got college volleyball player, college baseball player, and
I did not play college baseball.
Okay. No, you didn't play college.
I wish I would have.
All right.
But no, I
didn't. You elected to go to A&M instead.
Yeah, to study. I was very studious.
Yeah, I did.
My college career, my wife's college careers, they
quite different.
Yes,
quite different.
Quite different.
Yeah, I did a fair amount of studying at Texas Tech too, so I
somehow found our way.
Yeah, you figured it out one way or another. Yeah. Well, I think you actually graduated from A&M. I don't think I ever finished Tech. I had to come back here.
I did graduate one way or another.
See?
From some help of some very kind friends and advisors along the way.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the business. Obviously, I've been in real estate a long time, know generally what roofers do, but I think there's probably more stuff that you guys actually do that people don't realize. So tell us kind of just general breadth of services, like what you guys offer, what, kind of services you can give to people.
And it's different. There's a multitude of things we do depending upon the situation. Right?
Okay.
So from a real estate perspective, we'll kind of start there.
Sure.
What we find is people go out, they've had the inspection, they get an inspection report back and say, hey, there could be some stuff going on with the roof, so we'd like to have you come out and give us an opinion prior to option date.
Right.
So we go out, it's usually at the 11th hour. We have very little time to get things figured out and things moving in the right direction. So we go out, we look obviously for storm related damage, just the general condition of the roof, and then we'll draw up some sort of report so they have that knowledge to go to the buyer or the seller at the time.
Right. And you do this at no charge, is that correct?
No charge, yeah, absolutely no charge. Any roofer that wants to charge you for an inspection, move on to someone else, whether it's me or otherwise. Yeah, there's no charge for that.
Okay.
So, and we come out and give them what we feel is the right estimation of the roof.
Gotcha.
Everybody sees things a little bit different, but we're going to give you an honest assessment.
So you're just coming out basically giving them an idea about how old it is, if there's any damage, just the general quality of it as a whole, so that way it helps them in negotiations.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is kind of where insurance and real estate collide as well, because what we're finding, it doesn't take a whole lot for, an underwriter to say, hey, this roof is not insurable.
Right.
It could be one missing shingle, the roof could be too old, degranulated, any multitude of things. So we're trying to let them know, hey, these are some issues that you could run into when you buy this house. Because the last thing you want to do is someone to buy this house, they go to write an insurance policy or have insurance written for their home, and they're like, well, yeah, you can get insurance, but you're gonna have to replace this roof. And if you didn't have anything done prior, then that's on you.
Well, that's a good point. So a lot of people don't know too that a lot of insurance companies, and they're all a little different, but they will come out and they won't come out. You'll get a policy, a binder that'll say, okay, here's what your quote on the policy is, here's how much it's gonna be. And then once the contract is executed and finalized and you're actually, close and you own the house, then the insurance company will send an adjuster out to take a look at the roof or take a look at other pieces of the property and give you indications on whether or not it's insurable or not. And most of the time, it's the roof that's the problem.
Absolutely.
And so you'll have a lot of buyers that'll go out and have a house. They'll be moved in, everybody's high-fiving, we're celebrating, and then the adjuster shows up a week later and says the roof's uninsurable, and now they have to get that fixed just to get insurance on the house.
That's right.
So having someone come out early and take a look at it and give you that indication before you get out of your option period and before you actually close on your property is a big, huge help. And because it doesn't cost any money, there's no reason why you shouldn't do that. And it's in the best, people say, well, I don't want to waste your time. I'm sure the roof's fine, but what would you say to that?
No, you absolutely need to do it for just peace of mind and for what you're talking about. Because as you said, they come out, they inspect the roof, and then they say, this roof is not insurable. You have 60 days to get something done about it.
Right.
And best case scenario, you can go back to the seller because you have 2 years from the date of the storm to file a claim, typically. So you can go back, even though that policy is essentially null and void, you can go back and file a claim with them if that
with the previous insurance
from
the sellers.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
So you do have that ability. Obviously, you want to get it done prior to then because everything gets convoluted at that point. But you absolutely need to do it. And then one of the other things that I think there's a big misconception about is there can be a really old roof. It can be bad and it can be uninsurable. Just period uninsurable. The thing is though, that roof may not have any storm related damage. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. Just because it's old doesn't mean that an insurance adjuster is going to total that roof.
Okay.
Old is not going to get you a roof. It has to have storm related damage.
Actual damage on it.
It has to be damaged. It has to either be, wind or hail. Those are your two biggest factors.
And you can't go up there with like a rake and.
You cannot. You cannot.
They can see that. They
do. There's some forensic guys that are going to track that down.
Okay.
But that's I think where things get a little fuzzy in the real estate business because I will tell them, hey, this roof is really bad. I don't believe it's insurable just based upon the fact that it's just old and degranulated.
Right.
It's not good. So at that point, maybe they call an adjuster out. The adjuster comes out and says, roof's fine. We're not paying you a penny for anything. The roof's not fine.
Right.
That roof is still potentially uninsurable to whomever is buying that home.
Okay.
So from a real estate perspective, your realtor, your roofer, they need to have a real honest conversation saying, no, we really have to have this roof replaced prior to the sale of the home, and we do not believe insurance is going to total this roof.
Okay, so how would you typically get that covered? Or I guess, how do you solve that problem between the seller and the buyer?
Yeah, that comes down to the real estate agent and what they're able to negotiate.
Gotcha.
Because I know, just because we look at enough roofs and most roofers will know, hey, this isn't going to fly.
Right.
And the other thing is we're finding too, and I guess it's probably been around forever, but once a roof hits kind of like that 15-year mark, you're going to notice your premiums are really, really high if they'll write it at all. So that's another benefit too.
Right.
So let's say you've got a 15-year-old roof today. If you put a new roof on it, the premiums are going to be significantly less.
Right.
I'm sure you got insurance agents
Yes.
you're going to talk to about all this too. That will
Yes.
explain it much better than I. But if we escape, I guess, from the real estate side of things, I think that's a big fear just for homeowners in general too. They're scared to file a claim because, well, it's going to make my rates go up.
Right.
In the state of Texas, that is not the case.
Right.
Mother Nature cannot affect your rates negatively at all.
Actually, it's the other way.
It's going to help you.
Yes.
That's absolutely right. So you file the claim, they total the roof, you put a new roof on, your rates are going to drop.
And would I be correct in saying this? Because I get backwards on this a few times, but so let's say I'm the seller, right? And I have some damage on my roof. You're my buyer, you're coming in to buy the house. You, Cody, come out, check my roof, say, hey, you had some damage, there was a storm, 6 months ago, you need to get this replaced. Now, I, as the seller, am thinking, well, I don't want to pay for this. I'm about to sell my house. But in reality, the insurance company is going to pay for it, correct?
The vast majority of it. The only thing that a homeowner is required to pay is the deductible.
Okay, you have to pay the deductible, which even in some cases you might be able to work something in the contract there, possibly, I don't know.
So the only way that you could really help with the deductible, and it's a big math problem at the end of the day.
Sure.
If there are collateral items that maybe you're going to pay out of pocket, you could take maybe those funds and put them towards the deductible.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the state of Texas made that language very, very blatant a couple of years ago.
Okay.
That in no way, shape, or form can you rebate for the deductible.
Right, and anybody that's doing that, it's probably not the best, right?
It's not great.
Don't want to do that. Don't want to do that.
So you got to be careful with
Gotcha.
that for sure.
Gotcha.
And you got any roofer out there that language has to be stated in their contract. So yeah, you got to be very, very careful with that.
And then, so as the buyer now, if I'm following correctly, then is now I got a new roof on my house, and my insurance premiums have gone way down because I think everybody knows insurance, or I say knows it. Everybody understands you have to have insurance on your house and on your car and things of that nature. But I don't know that most people realize that the vast majority of the premium for your homeowner's insurance is built into the age of your roof.
That's absolutely correct.
Because what are most claims on insurance?
That's
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Specifically around here, 5 to 8 years, you're likely getting a new roof.
Right.
And so we see that, and your rates reflect that. So each year, you get that new roof, you get a new roof discount, again, depending upon your policy or whomever you're with. But every year, you'll start to see that rate slowly creeps up. Yeah. And so people will, one of the first things they'll do is they'll call their insurance agent, hey, my rates are getting high. Mm-hmm. And any good agent's going to say, hey, well, have you had your roof looked at in a while? Have you had a hailstorm? Oh, as a matter of fact, yeah, we've had some roofs go up in the neighborhood. That's the easiest way to get your rates reduced. Yeah, other than screwing with your deductible, and we can talk more about that too.
Sure.
We're seeing more of that happening too, depending upon the policy or the carrier, where they're moving a lot of people into a 2% deductible. And that's 2% based upon the insured value of your home.
Yes.
Home values are going way, way up, and so those deductibles are going up too. So you really want to know, if I can advise anybody to look at anything with regard to their policies, specifically going into storm season, March, April, May, know what your deductible is, because a 2% deductible, on a $500,000 home, that's a $10,000 check. And I don't like throwing around $10,000, especially for a roof.
No, well, that's we deal with that a lot too on the mortgage side of things, because whenever we get to certain deductible levels, because you can do 1, 2, 3. There's some companies that'll even do a little bit more than that, because consumers generally are pretty price sensitive. Yeah. So they see that premium for the insurance, they're like, oh, I want that. That's what I want to get. What they miss or don't realize is that they're getting a 2 or 3% deductible, and then when that damage actually comes, which it does, it happens, you're having to come out of pocket a lot of money. And then as the mortgage company, we actually require that if you're going to have any more than a 2% deductible, that you have to show reserves in your bank account that you have enough to pay that deductible. So sometimes we can help you catch that, but not all the time. Yeah. And when your insurance guy or when your roofer guy shows up and says, hey, you get a brand new roof and it's going to bring your premiums down, you're like, all right, that's great. Like, now we need to check for 12 grand. Like, wait a minute.
I didn't plan for that.
Yes. So that is a big thing. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other important piece, and I'm seeing a little bit more of this, I think a lot of companies that were doing this purged a lot of business, but they moved people from what's called a replacement cost policy into an actual cash value policy. And what the difference is in that replacement cost is exactly like it sounds. You get the value of your roof. Whatever it costs, they're paying that replacement cost. Actual cash value is essentially a depreciated amount for your roof. Okay. So if you have an actual cash value policy, let's say your roof's 10 years old, they've depreciated that roof by 10 years. So if it's a 10-year-old roof, or I'm sorry, a $10,000 roof, and they've depreciated it by 10 years, you can only be getting a check for like $3,000.
Oh, wow.
Let's assume you have a $3,000 deductible.
You're
At the end of the day,
basically
you
paying
get zero.
Right.
So those are the two most important things that I see when it comes to roofing. Do you have a full replacement cost policy, and what is your deductible?
Okay. So, all right. So we kind of have a pretty good idea of what to look for when you're buying the house, right? You're looking into, or selling it for that matter. And that was a lot of great information. So now I'm the homeowner. I own my house.
Yep.
Is there anything that you would recommend, like on an annual basis, monthly, quarterly, that you're checking, or just making sure that something's in decent? Whether it related to gutters or windows or whatever the case may be. Things that you guys do that you would say, hey, make sure you're looking at this certain times a year, that kind of thing.
Yeah, depending upon the age of the roof,
okay.
Sure. Newer roofs, you're gonna have a lot less problems.
Right.
But as the roof gets older, could call it 5 years. I think that's probably a pretty good indicator because we're having some pretty significant storms in those amount of times.
Okay.
You wanna make sure everything's sealed on your roof, all your fasteners, your plumbing boots, your vents. There are exposed nails in those areas that have to be sealed.
Right.
And if that stuff wears away, shifting on your home, those nails can back out a little bit. And those are leak points. Depending upon the roof, if they were going too fast, there might be exposed nails that never were seen, that are just exposed and they back themselves out.
Right.
Those are leak points. And it may not look like much. Just a tiny little place, but I've seen a lot of water get in those areas.
But then when it freezes.
Exactly. And we saw a lot of strange stuff with the freeze issue that we've never seen before, and we probably won't ever see again. Maybe certain areas of the country see that,
right.
But they're also coded differently in the way that those roofs are installed. So after a freeze, that's a good time to look at stuff. We notice water backing up and over into like ridge vent areas, which there's a lot of homes that have ridge vent now, which I won't get into all the technical.
What is ridge vent?
So what you'll see kind of on the peaks of roof, you'll
right.
see what looks like a raised area.
Okay.
And it's shingled over, but it's lifted up. Well, along those ridges, or just below them rather, there's a vented section. So it allows the air in your attic to be the exhaust when it comes out of the roof. So it circulates that air,
gotcha.
Through the intake and out the exhaust there.
Okay.
So you see a lot of that, but in certain areas of the roof, that ice and snow would get built up and it just starts to creep down in. Well, when everything started to melt, it leaked down into the home. We haven't seen that here very often.
No.
So anyway, but those things certainly need to be looked at over time. A really good indicator of hail, and everybody's heard hail in their home likely in this area, sure. One way or another, and you hear it here in the windows and you think the whole house is coming down. The first thing you can look at, one, do you have damage on your car if it's out there?
Okay.
And the second thing,
damage on the car is an indicator.
There's a good chance if you have hail hits on your car, you've got hail hits on your roof. Okay. Depending upon what kind of.
If your car's parked outside, which mine.
Yeah, all in my neighborhood seem to be out.
You have a big enough truck that doesn't quite fit in the drive.
It's not going in.
Yeah.
But then your gutters, they call that soft metal. All the soft metal on the roof, it's just that, it's aluminum. It's really soft, so it takes impacts. If you have hits on your gutters or downspouts, it's a good time to, call your roofer, have them come out and take a look. And then the other thing is just, before you just go file a claim because you had a hailstorm, have somebody come out and take a look at it.
Right.
You don't want to waste your own time, anybody else's time, for them to come out, look at it, and say, hey, there's not really any damage, or there's a $300 repair that you could do. It's below your deductible. You're not getting any money anyway. At that point, you might as well just have a roofer repair it. There's no point in filing that claim. Not that it harms you from an insurance perspective,
right.
But it just kind of saves time and gets you back to where you need to be in lieu of just having someone come out.
Okay, so if you had a storm, let's say, we noticed some hail damage, should I call my insurance company first or should I call you first?
Call a roofer first.
Okay, and why is that?
Well, more often than not, you're going to call your insurance agent and they're going to say, well, has anybody looked at it? You're going to say, well, no. Well, you should have somebody come out and take a look at your roof beforehand.
They usually give you that direction. Or they'll send their own person.
Or they'll refer you to somebody who may or may not be, anyway.
Yeah.
But no, it's better to have it looked at. And also because what happens, let's assume we do find damage on the roof. So they're going to send an adjuster out at that point when you file the claim.
Right.
You want to know what you're dealing with and what we're seeing on the roof, because with everybody's trying to save a little money now.
Of course.
So they're doing things a little differently now. So a lot of times what we're seeing is they're actually not sending a licensed adjuster out to your home, strangely enough. So what they're sending out is an inspector, and they're calling it a virtual inspection.
And they're like, I think I've seen, they're like film it and taking pictures.
They're taking pictures.
And then some adjusters
sitting dots by what they call anomalies on the roof. They're not going to call it hail. They're not going to tell it anything.
Right.
Because by law, these inspectors can't tell you anything with regard to your claim, anything. All they're doing is just documenting what they find on the roof. So I want to see what they're documenting on the roof when I meet an adjuster or an inspector out there,
Right.
so we can have a conversation about what's going on.
Okay.
So, and with those virtual inspections, anytime there's a transfer of information, stuff gets lost.
Right.
Okay, and there are a multitude of items. You would think it's just a roof. Hey, we write you a check for a roof, it's the end. There can be 50 line items of things that need to go on your roof, and each of those items is really important, you know, to the integrity of your home.
Yeah.
And so the insurance company owes you the money for those items. And if those items aren't on there, you're going to be shorted. You know, it may cost more than what they determined on the front end.
Right.
So we need to have the opportunity to go back to the insurance adjuster and say, hey, this, and this was missed.
So you're saying
Here's
they're missing things that aren't.
Yeah, many things.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's just a disagreement on the roof.
Right.
I've always been of the opinion there is no reason to argue with an adjuster on a roof. And I see that a lot. I think, unfortunately, maybe at times that gives the roofing industry a bad name. Now, there's a number of things that give the roofing industry a bad name.
Hey, every industry's got that. So
We got them, right?
We got it too.
But there's no real reason to argue. We can have a disagreement on the roof. There are a number of steps you can go through to get the end result that we believe is what's right for the home.
Right.
So maybe we don't agree on the front end. Maybe they decide we're only going to pay for one slope of the roof, but we feel there's enough damage on the entirety of the home. You, as a homeowner or a policyholder, you have the right to ask for a second inspection. And there's a number of steps and kind of hoops you have to jump through to get that next adjuster out, but you have that right. And so having a good roofer who knows, you know, what's required, you know, through the photo documentation process, the estimating process, to send those items in to get that adjuster out, you need to be able to do that. And arguing with the guy on your roof is never going to get the intended outcome.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to give what you want.
No.
Yeah.
And you know, and a lot of times, sometimes that second look doesn't get what you want either.
Right.
You have to go to the appraisal process. And that's a whole nother can of worms. I'll say that's probably another guy you should bring in to talk to. But with that, there's a whole different licensed group of people that get together and can get you the outcome where you need to come.
Okay.
So the insurance company will send out their appraiser. You will have your own appraiser. They meet in the middle and discuss what needs to happen.
All right. Well,
To go to that step, you really need a roofer or somebody who believes in their heart of hearts that you have enough damage to go to those next steps. Because like anything, it costs additional money.
right.
So
you need a legitimate reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just because you don't like the answer you got.
That's right. And you know, and I don't want to knock door knockers
Sure.
by any stretch. Those guys they work really
You're hustling,
hard.
you're out there.
They're making it happen.
Yeah.
But you do need to be really careful and follow up with any roofer, whether they knock on your door or whether somebody refers you. Do your background check on them. Make sure they're good, because you want to get an honest answer.
Yeah.
There are guys that come in from Louisiana, Kansas, wherever after a storm, and at the end of the day, it's just a numbers game. They're beating on doors, whether you have damage or not. Hey, file a claim. If the adjuster comes out and totals your roof, call me back. We'll put a new one up. But if they don't and they partial you, which we can talk about partials too if you want to, but that's kind of the worst case scenario. They don't care. They just go on to the next one.
Right.
So just really do your homework. Find somebody who's good. And number one thing in roofs, and you hear about it every year, don't ever give a roofer money up front. Just don't ever do it.
Yeah, anytime you have, again, like you said, not knocking the door knocker guys, they're out there hustling and doing their thing, but you know, you got to be careful with that kind of stuff just because you don't know them. And you know, it's always best to, you know, the good news is if someone knocks on your door and asks you if you need a roof replacement, odds are you probably had a storm recently.
Absolutely.
And
They're there and quick.
Right, yeah, you
quick.
probably need it. And it's amazing how many companies pop up out of nowhere once the storm hits.
And the reason for that, strangely enough, and I get asked this a lot, like, oh, well, are you licensed in the state of Texas? There is no licensing to be a roofer in the state of Texas.
Anybody, any Joe Blow.
Anybody. Now, obviously, ask if they have insurance and things like that. You know, Better Business Bureau, all the kind of general suspects, but there's no licensing. And, until that changes, that's just going to continue to be a problem.
Well, and that's a good point too. You know, a lot of people a lot of times think, well, you know, I don't know anybody or I can't. You got to remember, you know, if you're looking for a roofer, and let's say you don't know anybody, you know, hopefully you watch this, you see Cody, you give him a call. But if you're missing and you don't know somebody, well, call your real estate agent when you bought your house. Call the lender who did your loan. Call your landscape guy who mows the yard. I mean, we're all, you know, we all kind of run in similar circles because we're all related to the business in one form or fashion. And it's always better, again, to do business with people that you know and that you trust and that you can get other referrals from. You know, how did they do for you? Recently had somebody who kind of called me out of the blue that you were doing the roof for, and it was Tracy, one of my team members, and she was like, do you know Cody Durham? I'm like, yeah, I know Cody, really well. And she's like, well, he's coming to do my roof. Is he going to do a good job? I'm like, well, I don't know about that. No, I'm kidding. I was like, yes, of course. Like, he's fantastic, and she's, she was checking just to make sure that, because y'all had never met, she didn't know you, and this was in Dallas, by the way. Speaking of that, what areas do you guys serve? All over, yeah.
All over. I mean, we within about 2 hours, we'll go wherever.
Okay. Yeah. So she was definitely checking your history, going online, looking at you, but got nothing but good responses. So she felt great, and you went out there and took great care of her.
Yeah, we knocked it out. She was great. We got it done. It was a good steep roof too.
Yeah. Well, that's what she's like. I'm not getting up there.
Yeah, I didn't want to get up there.
I don't blame you. So, all right. So last thing, I'm just curious of this because everybody always has really good stories. So I want to know, you've been doing this now for several years. You got your own company rolling. So what, we can leave names out. There's no need to bring that up. But what's your best, kind of story of, well, this happened and you won't believe this person did this or said that? You got one of those?
Oh gosh, I'm sure I do. You put me on the spot.
I know. You got to think about it a little bit. I mean, we have that stuff happen to us all the time where, that's kind of the joke in the office. Well, talk to somebody and like, okay, listen to this one. This is pretty good.
Yeah, no, man. I did have someone, and I do not do this, by the way. However, she had like raccoons and cats in the roof and wanted me to go in and get the cats. I'm out.
Like get the cats? She wanted you to go fish the cats?
I'm not fetching cats out of the roof. I'm sorry. I'll do a lot of stuff. That one comes to mind.
So wait, raccoons? So she had, were they her raccoons?
No,
or were they just living in there?
They just somehow got in the roof. So
because Susan is trying to get a raccoon, and I keep telling her she can't have a raccoon, but she wants one as a pet.
Send Susan to me. So that was a bad dog.
That's what I keep telling.
No, man, get a gerbil or something. That's no.
TikTok is causing me a lot of problems because they keep showing videos of raccoons being pets. Don't get a raccoon. It's a wild animal. Okay, leave it in the wild.
It's a bad idea.
Right.
It's a bad idea. Gosh, I'm trying to think of a really good story. I'm gonna have to think on that.
Okay,
I'll get back to you on that one. I'll send you one. But anyway, there's been a lot. I'm sure they all definitely run together.
Yes. There's anytime you're up on top of somebody's roof, digging through their attic and all kinds of stuff, I'm sure there's all kinds of adventures that come your way on that. So
we see lots of stuff.
Well, Cody, I really appreciate you coming by, taking a few hours out of your day. I know he drove all the way from Dallas today because he had another job he was doing. I'm back in Mansfield, so he drove all the way back here just to do this with me. So we can show a couple hundred people hopefully. But if anybody wants to contact you, what's the best way to get a hold of you and let them know?
You can go online, 10gageroofing.com, or 10gageridgeroofing.com rather. You can call me on my cell, 817-470-7471. I'm easy. Facebook, we're up there. Google, we're around.
You're on all the socials?
I'm totally social. Is that how you say it? Is that what the kids are saying?
I think so. I don't know, man. I just put things up and then hope it works out. I don't really pretend to know what the heck's going on.
Yeah. You got people for that, don't you, Mike?
Yes. Oh, well, yeah, something like that. Well, and by the way, if you're looking for some good quality merch, I will say the hats and the shirts.
We got some pretty solid.
They're pretty solid, man. I really like Eric had the one with the 10, just the 10 on it.
10 GR. I thought I'd represent the full.
No, I dig it. So if you're looking for some good, solid roofing merch, that's also, reach out to them for that.
Yeah, you get a new roof, I can maybe hook you up with that.
Throw it in a hat on the side. All right, brother. Well, I really appreciate you coming out.
Thanks
a lot.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.